On this episode of Game Shack, 5 things you ought to know before you think about buying the AtGames 4KP. Coming up next. Hey everybody, welcome on back into the Game Shack. I'm your host, JDV for Evil Genius Entertainment. Thanks for stopping by. If you dig this kind of content, give me a thumbs up. It does help the channel out quite a bit. Subscribe if you haven't already, and if you do subscribe, hit that notification bell. If you really want to help out the channel, you can purchase something from my affiliate links or buy me a coffee. Information down below. Before we go any further, you guys ought to know that AtGames has sent me this machine for review. They didn't expect any reviews in return. They don't tell me what kind of reviews to write. They didn't ask me to do this review. They don't get to see it before you. As always, make up your own mind. Do other research. Don't just rely upon my opinion. I am going to try to be as unbiased as I humanly possibly can. But A, they did send me this machine, and B, I do love pinball. In particular, I love virtual pinball, so take that for what it's worth. So yeah, I've been thinking about doing this episode for a while, and that's because the reality is that pinball is an expensive hobby. It doesn't matter if you're getting into the real world pinball games, the minimum of which you're probably going to pay about $1,000 for an old 40, 50-year-old EM. Around $1,500 you can start to get into slightly newer EMs, some older solid state type games. For around $3,000 you can get into a game like Meteor or say Lethal Weapon. You can start to get into that kind of thing. Gorgar for around $2,000. So it's very expensive to get into real world pinball, even if you're buying a decades old machine. If you want to buy something new, you're going to be looking at paying at least probably $6,000. Maybe you can get one used for $5,000, but I mean, you're going to be paying at least $5,000 for any kind of Stern that's even, 15 years old. In terms of virtual pinball, other than the 4KP, you really only have a few different options, at least in terms of licensed machines. One is the Toy Shock, Haunted House, or Black Hole. That is a 24-inch playfield that has 12 Gottlieb games. You can also get into a 24-inch playfield from Arcade 1-Up, and you can get 3 different varieties, either 10 games of different Star Wars, 10 Williams games, or you can get 10 Marvels games, and those are going to be Zen based, and that's going to be of interest because Zen, of course, now makes a lot of games for the 4KP. If you're going to be trying to pick up a Toy Shock, they're both going for $500 right now on Walmart. You can get into a used A1-Up for around $500. They go for $600 to $700 new, depending upon where you buy it at. Or if you get Kohl's Cash, you can make a little bit of money back or whatever. So you're talking right around the $500-600 range for the main competitors of this. You can pick up the HD version of this new for $800. I looked on Facebook and I saw one as low as $400. They go for, generally speaking, though, $500 to $600 used, and again, right around $800 if you pick this up. So that's kind of why I want to do this and say, is that worth this extra money? Is it worth to spend $1,500, $1,600 on a machine like this? You should know that right now, this is the best commercially mass-produced virtual pinball game in the world. You cannot buy anything that is licensed and mass-produced that is better than the 4KP. It's just not out there. You can get over 200 games for this thing. The library grows on an almost weekly basis at this point. There are 7 different skins available on it. Again, the topper, you get 3 screens. You get the back glass that's 24, the DMD. You get the 32-inch 4K 60p playfield. You get haptics. If you get the SS kit, you're getting 7.1, 5.1 sound. It's a great sound. You have a great user interface, constant firmware upgrades, real pinball legs, real pinball glass. Everything about it screams quality when you compare it to other things in the space and in general. Put another way, if you could actually put a working coin door on this would fit very nicely in a Dave & Buster's or a bar or your home pinball arcade. It's that good. It looks like a real pinball game. It feels as close to a pinball game can at this size. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a second, but just generally speaking, this is the slickest, best looking, best playing, best virtual pinball game that you can buy in the world right now that is licensed and mass produced. The sound is amazing with that SSF kit, and in particular, it sounds fantastic with those Zen games. And there's some pluses and minuses on those Zen games. One of the pluses is that some of these Zen games play natively better on the 4KP than they do on much higher end computers. So when you play a game like The Thing or a game like Fishtails, they are kind of tuned in for this. So The Thing plays way much better on this than it does on my other Steam build. The Fishtails, at least for me, plays much nicer and smoother. The ball is just a little slower. It's easier to hit shots. It's a really, really nice experience playing these Zen games on this 4KP because they have been tuned to this machine. But there's a flip side to that coin, and this is maybe the most controversial thing about this machine. While this is a true 4K monitor in the playfield, it does 60 frames per second, 60p, but for all of the Zen games, it's only going to go up to 1440, so call that Ultra HD, somewhere between true 4K and HD. And that may be a deal breaker for you guys, or for depending on your use scenario. Again, I'm going to talk at the end who this is really for, but I think it's important to know that you're not going to get 120 frames per second. You're not going to get true 4KP on the Zen games, and you're not going to be able to shift your perspective the way you can in those Steam games. In those Steam games, you can change perspective 7, 8 different ways. Essentially, they offer you what I call an apron mode, but let you punch into the playfield and eliminate the dead space at the top and bottom of the game. You cannot do that on any of the games on the 4KP, including the Zen games. And the Zen-made games are really guilty of a lot of dead space in their original games. Like if you look at The Thing or Godzilla or King Kong, you see just, almost a third of the screen really isn't used, and that's unfortunate. Again, these games weren't designed for the 4KP. They were just optimized after the fact for the 4KP. So if you are somebody who's really looking for the state of the art, the best of the best playfield, which is not going to be a 32-inch screen. 32 inches is definitely playable and is very, very nice and makes you feel like you're playing pinball. But to get into the right width for a pinball, you need a 42-inch diagonal monitor. If you want the right length, you need to get a 48-inch or a 50-inch monitor and then crop the sides in your build. But just because these games are not in true 4K doesn't mean they're not playable and doesn't mean they don't look good. They do look good. I think Addams Family, Twilight Zone, Attack from Mars looks absolutely fantastic. The Thing looks great. Chucky looks great. Those Butters games, the South Park games look really, really good and colorful. Now the other tables made by Magic Pixel, those are true 4K. A couple of other things about the Zen tables before I move on. One, you're not going to see any of the new Stern or Jersey Jack games on here, at least not to my knowledge. Stern has not licensed them out to Zen. I don't think Jersey Jack has either. Basically, if it's from 2010 and upwards, you're not going to see it on here. Now, of course, you can play some of that stuff on the OTG thing on here that, you can run your computer into the back of this and kind of use this as a trigger in a play field. I don't do that because I have my own machine that's dedicated to that, but you could. But again, in terms of actually buying the game that's on here, no, you're not going to be able to do that. The second thing is that we're probably never going to see a Star Wars or a Marvel game. And again, if we do, it'll be a long time to come. So if you have played Star Wars or Marvel games on Steam, on your Switch or whatever way, and you want to play them on here, you're not going to be able to do that, again, unless you use OTG. That is an important factor. Talking a little bit more about the tables that are available, the fourth thing that you ought to know is that the Gottlieb tables on here, while they are good and very playable, could probably sound a little better. They're not quite tuned all the way into the SSF kit if you get that. I think the graphics probably could use a refresh, and the physics also. The ball kind of tends to be a little floaty on the Gottlieb games. Not a giant deal, and it's going to be better experience than if you played on the Toy Shock, obviously, but it's something that has not gotten a whole lot of attention in the 1 year since it's been released, and these games have been around on the HD since its inception. So I'm hoping that we get to see a refresh of these Gottlieb tables where we have where we see the playfields look a little better, we have the next gen in physics, and that sound is a little better tuned in to the SSF kit. The fifth thing that you ought to know is that right now we have 7 skins available for this, and there are, in theory, 8 more skins to come. Now, in theory, AtGames is going to put out 5,000 units of each of these tables. Now, I believe that is an aspirational number because I don't think they're going to see 5,000 sales on some of these skins. But in theory, if they did, they would stop at 5,000 and there'd be no more of that. There is some controversy in the community as to whether or not these nameplates are truly consecutive, or if you get the different variety of the pinball games, if those are also numbered oddly. So I wouldn't be buying it for the nameplate aspect of this. I think it's kind of cool, but it's really not something to worry about. I do think that it would be nice if we knew what those other 8 skins are, because I think a lot of people are still sitting on the fence waiting for something like Creature from the Black Lagoon or Star Trek The Next Generation. So if there's a skin that you really want to see, reach out to AtGames, let them know. Maybe I can do a poll here or something like that. But the fact is, we don't know what those other 8 skins are going to be. Bottom line is, I think that this pinball game probably hits a sweet spot for a lot of people who want to have a real pinball game in their house, or at least a very good V-pin, something that they're going to play for years and years and years, that they're going to be able to add games to when they want to or when they go on sale. And so you could slowly build up your collection on this. You don't have to buy all 200 games at once. I don't have any of the Zaccaria games on here, not one. I don't know, for some reason I haven't gotten to them, you know, they're just not there. So you can add these games as you want to, and because the game is so well built, because it is so slick looking, it's something that could stay in your family's rec room, man cave, whatever, for years and years and years to come. Now, if you're really super serious about V-Pen and you want the most cutting edge type table, this is probably not going to float your boat the way some other maybe more expensive builds were, or DIY builds. And on the flip side, conversely, if you're just looking for a little tiny taste of virtual pinball, just something that is sitting next to some of your other games so you have some variety, then maybe the Toy Shock or AtGames or even the ELP would fit the bill better. I mean, again, I don't know what your interest is in pinball or virtual pinball. I think it's a great machine. I really do. I'm happy it's in my collection. I play it a lot, even though I do have a technically superior machine, because it is so simple. I flick a button, it jumps online, and now I'm playing Battlestar Galactica, or The Thing, or TX Sector, or whatever. I just scan over to it, bam. Whereas on my build, there's a lot more rigmarole to get it going. Now, once it's going, it's fantastic. But this, when I got like 20 minutes to get in the game, I come out here, I pop on this game, and I have a blast. And I think you'd have a blast too if you pick this thing up. Yeah, it's going to come at somewhat of a price. Okay, so let me know down below if this helps. If you do like this kind of content, give me a thumbs up on the way out the door. It really does help the channel. Love each other, and until next time, I'll see you guys in the Game Shack. Mwah!
Be sure to visit evilgeniusentertainment.com for exclusive content, swag, casting call news, and much, much more.